Poke the Bear is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 138, presented by FanDuel. I'm Evan Marinofsky. That's Conor Ryan. Connor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. During the first round games on Thursday, the Bruins played the Winnipeg Jets, beat them 3-0. And Jakub Lauko, finally, first game in 2 weeks, brought out, he's like, just, and he has fun with it on Twitter, right? He, just going back and forth, the Grandpa Simpson meme of walking in and doing a circle in the foyer and then walking out. That's basically been Jakub Lauko for the past couple of weeks with the Bruins. But he played against the Winnipeg Jets on Thursday and played well. I think it was you who posted the video, or it might have been Mr. Tenkrat posted the video of a really good shift from Jakub Lauko. And he was good. And I think you're seeing there's some NHL upside there with him.
Yeah, and I think that's been the case for most of the season. Again, he hasn't really been given an extended stretch of time up in the NHL ranks, but when he's been called up, I mean, you even look at it back earlier in March when he had that first game, I think in 2 weeks, he goes in against the Sabres, scores 2 goals, doesn't play for 2 weeks, then comes back in this game against Winnipeg. And again, even though he didn't have a point against Winnipeg, only played about 6 minutes of ice time, which is more, I think, a byproduct of the fact that there's a lot of, special teams, 4-on-4, those kind of things going on. But in that limited amount of time, he led the team in individual scoring chances. Like he was around the puck, around grade A ice. And he's kind of, he has that mentality of a fourth line grinder in terms of, trying to, get into the dirty areas of the ice, mixing up after the play. But also I think he has that natural speed and acceleration that other fourth line guys don't have, where whether it's winning, races to the puck, kind of making something out of nothing by driving to the net. Like there's a couple of times where I think he even caught a guy like Hellebuck off guard in terms of just how quickly he was able to scoop up the puck, bring it down low, and either get a shot off or at least, create a little bit of havoc whenever he's around there. So again, I don't think this is a guy that you're going to roll him out for the next 5-6 games. He's going to score like 4 goals and something like that. But I think at the very least, you look at a guy like Lauko, who at one point was kind of viewed as this like fringe, like, is he a pretty solid AHL guy, but a guy who's not good enough to crack the NHL? I think he's right in that mix where if you're looking at for the rest of the season, that vacancy on that fourth line, you have to imagine it's Hathaway, Nosek, not moving those guys. But between him and Greer, it seems like it can go really back and forth. And if those two guys are competing for minutes and the way they both play, that should probably get the most out of them if they're kind of fighting, game in and game out.
And it's like on defense with Grzelcyk, Forbort, and Clifton, in the sense that both of them bring different elements, right? Greer plays a little bit of a different game than Jakub Lauko. And I think that's a good thing. You can kind of roll them out based on matchups, based on what you need. Lauko brings, a lot of that speed. Greer just kind of hits a lot and plays with a lot of intensity, things like that. So, and also I think Lauko could be a guy potentially down the road next year that you do need and do use. And he's kind of proven, molding into a guy you can move around the bottom 6 if you'd like. Now, is he going to be a top 6 guy? No, they have quite enough depth on the wings on this team, but they really don't need that. Now Lauko does love to use Twitter, so there is that element of it. He does love him some Twitter. Yes, he is always online. But it's also a good thing to have in the playoffs, to have him, if someone goes down, if someone gets injured, you need someone to step in for a game, he can do that and kind of provide you that buzz. And I think that's a really good place to be with a guy like Jakub Lauko. Now, on defense, the depth was impacted on Thursday night. Derek Forbort did the normal Derek Forbort thing, blocked a shot, left the game in a walking boot. Because that Winnipeg arena is so weird, I had to sit on the bench for quite a while, sitting in pain. As you tweeted, like Chris Wagner in 2019, after was it his wrist or his arm?
I think it was his wrist, I want to say, but absolutely shattered it.
Yeah, and had to sit on the bench and wait. Which is, I've never understood why an NHL arena has that, where teams can't just go the tunnel doesn't lead right to the bench. They have to, or I always love when the backup goalie has to sit like in a different spot. Like I think Montreal might be like this, or it's not Montreal. It's the Islanders used to be that way where the goalie would have to sit down in the corner.
They would cut to like the Bruins scoring a goal and it'd be like Anton Khudobin like up against the glass, just like
and having to get chirped by like opposing fans the whole game.
Yes, of course. So, I wouldn't chirp at Khudobin.
No, you can't chirp Khudobin. Khudobin's a national treasure. There's no reason to do that. But Forbort left the game in a walking boot. Jim Montgomery said won't play the rest of the trip. Not great news, because again, this is a guy you really don't want to lose. I know we've said, they have depth back there, but this is a big loss.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the Bruins do have the depth to at least have guys step in. I mean, right now you still have probably a 6-man unit that you can roll out there. Jim Montgomery also said they like to get Jakub Lauko in a couple of games, so I would imagine he kind of joins that rotation if they want to keep on cycling guys in and out. But as you said, it's tough because I think we've already touched on this before, and I don't think it's really changed. There haven't been a lot of answers, I think, yet with this defensive rotation in terms of, all right, there's one guy who is planting himself that he's not coming out of the lineup. There's not a guy who's, I think, like dipped enough that they're like, all right, this guy is absolutely going to be the 7th in the playoffs. But Forbort's a guy that, 5-on-5, we kind of know he's not maybe the best in terms of what he brings, but it's tough to overlook the PK numbers, right? Like even after, he didn't have a very good game against Chicago. Granted, I don't think a lot of guys did, Forbort, but he's right back out there and he showed his value in that game against Winnipeg, as you said. I mean, he gets hurt blocking the shot, but the Bruins were 5 for 5 on the PK through those first 40 minutes when he was out there. I think Ty Anderson kind of brought it up even before that game. Bruins PK with Forbort in the lineup, 88%. Pretty good. Without Forbort in the lineup, 76.5 for 39 for 51, which again, it's pretty notable drop for a PK that's been really good all year. And again, when you get into the playoffs and it's a situation where a 7-game series can be decided by a goal or two, that's where a guy like Forbort does, showcase his value. So even though he's not exactly a guy that 5-on-5 you're the most confident in, it's also tough to overlook the things that he brings, whether it's blocking shots, PK, some of that dirty work that other guys would ideally not like to do on a day-to-day basis. Forbort kind of embraces that role. So if he misses time, it's a tough hit. But again, hopefully he's at least healthy enough to come back right around the end of the regular season, if that's the case. Or, at this point, I wouldn't rush him back if you're the Bruins, because I think they're aware of, yes, even though he has flaws in his game, his skill set is something that, if you ask me right now, is he the odd man out of that 6-man rotation? I would probably say no. I think it's probably between Clifton and Grzelcyk, but again, even with those flaws, it really is tough to overlook what he brings in terms of, some really critical areas of the game.
And no one played well in that Blackhawks Bruins game on Tuesday. Oof. Yeah. Oof. But yeah, I mean, again, Forbort brings a serious value. The penalty killing aspect is huge in the playoffs, which we'll get to later in this episode. We're going to touch on a little playoff stuff, which is always fun. Long look ahead, but again, Forbort brings some serious value. When we're talking about serious value, though, Connor, our exclusive wagering partner, our good friends at FanDuel. Connor, what can people look forward to from FanDuel?
Massachusetts, listen up. The wait is finally over. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, is now live in Massachusetts. And new customers in Mass can get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston. Finally, you can bet on all your favorite sports, from the money line to point spreads to player props and more. Frankly, that's the best part of FanDuel. You can bet on anything. You want to wager how many goals David Pastrnak is going to score this season? Go for it. How many dingers Rafael Devers is going to have in 2023? Be my guest. How many TikTok dances Juju Smith-Schuster is going to post? Hell, it's probably there. It's probably
it's going to be somewhere, right? It has to be.
It's probably on the site. Listen, you can do it all over at FanDuel. No one beats that. So guys, please listen. Bet now on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Don't miss your chance to get $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/Boston and make every moment more on America's #1 sportsbook. 21 plus and present in Mass. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit is required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Hope is here. Go to gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support.
I will tell you, Connor is using some of those bonus bets on March Madness games. Thursday and Friday. And it makes it even more fun to watch the games when it's not just your bracket on the line, but you're a bet. So I did pretty well though. I got to give myself credit. I did well.
When Virginia's just eating a ball down the court like Jacoby Myers,
everyone's like, "No, what are you doing?"
And you're
thank God. Anyways, go do all of that. One thing that people did a lot of over the past week or so, a lot of people overreacted to the Bruins losing streak. And I get it. I will say this. I get it. I do understand it. There's not been a lot this year, right? That there's not been a lot of losing streaks. There's been barely any at all. They've been a wagon. So yeah, I mean, they play like crap against Chicago. I understand people get kind of worried. Power plays dried up. I get that too. That's a whole nother thing. We talked about a Bruins beat already though on Monday. But they go out against Winnipeg and they look good. They finish off the job. Nice workman, 3-0 win. And again, I think I understand it, but people really were overreacting pretty hard about those losses again. And they weren't good losses either. These were not good. I'm not saying it's good, but some of the reaction I saw on Twitter and different places, people kind of thought the sky was falling.
Yes, I think that's probably one byproduct of the fact this team has just only had 11 regulation losses all year. So when you do have games like that, especially one like Chicago, they were just straight up like put on the ropes. Like that Arizona loss in Arizona where it had that weird icing call that like messed things up. That was when we were like, shit happens, right? Like Chicago is like just straight up they got pantsed in that game against a very bad Chicago team.
Oh my God. I mean, if you stop someone on the street and ask them to name like 3 players in that Chicago top 6, they're not getting it. What was that one back in the day? It was like where they would stop. No, they would stop people and ask them like trivia questions. It was hosted by the guy Fitzy. I forget the name of the show. But if it was that show and they did about Chicago and the Blackhawks right now, people would win no money.
Yeah, there'd be zero money.
Was it Pocket Money? Was that it? Pocket Money?
That's what it was. Yeah,
it was Pocket Money.
I thought you were talking about the classic Nesson series, Sox Appeal.
Sox Appeal. Yes, that was all time.
Yes. Anyway, as we get back on track here, it is one of those things where those losses, I think, where they've been so few and far between. I think people tend to over exaggerate maybe the issues. And again, as you said, like bad losses, and I think it has been a concerning trend. Even like that home win against Detroit wasn't really a good game. Like even this Winnipeg game, there were a lot of pockets where they really could have stomped Winnipeg out and really didn't. So again, I think the most important thing is just them getting back to their details and finding their game. But it's just encouraging that, going in to Winnipeg against a team that was in the playoff picture all year. Now they're kind of slipping and getting very desperate. Really good goaltender and Hellebuck. That could have been a tough game for the Bruins that are already kind of trending downward over this last week and come back with a pretty professional, all things considered, 3-0 win. So at this point, again, I think one thing that impacts in terms of probably stoking the flames of people getting worried is the Lightning, right? In terms of, I think everyone just looked at how great that team was and how it went to shit very quickly and how awful it was. And they just don't want to, be part of that, which understandable.
I understand that too. Yeah. You don't want to be that. Yes, I get that.
But I think it's just something where for the Bruins, as long as they're, again, it's tricky because you want to make sure you're not losing those details, but also you have to be cognizant of, things like rest, things like, sorting out the lineup, other things that are probably more important than, knocking down a tomato can opponent or something like that. Even if they have another 1 or 2 losses that are like as long as I think they perform well against some of these very few remaining big matchups, Toronto, Carolina, even though Carolina also sucks because that's also the second leg of a back-to-back against Tampa, which again, please can the Bruins play Carolina not on a back-to-back?
Just like a regular game at a regular time, course, not like 5 p.m. or anything, like a regular time.
So if they perform well in games like that, even though they are in a little bit of an uphill climb in terms of the schedule, I think that's the biggest determinant. It's the rest of it, whether it's them resting guys, it's all part of the process in terms of what they want to be before the playoffs. So, again, you don't want these habits that have, sprouted up, whether it's deferring shots, being too selective with shots, breakaways, the goaltending slipping a little bit. Of course, you want to iron those things out. But again, we still have pretty much a month to go before the regular season ends. So there's plenty of time right now. And if the Bruins are sorting out these kind of bumps in the road now, as opposed to April 14th and they've lost 3 in a row and people are like, ooh, this is a much
Down
better time to do that
3-0 in the
now.
first round. That would be very fun.
Yeah,
I think people would react very normal to that, I would think.
I think the comments on our stuff would be very interesting. But yeah, again, they have time to sort things out. And again, beating Winnipeg on the road, a nice bounce back performance from them.
I think they can beat any team. My biggest thing is, can they figure out the power play? I think that's my biggest kind of focus over the next, rest of the season is, can they just figure the power play out? That's the biggest thing. I don't look at, if they can beat Tampa and Carolina, terrific. That's awesome. But my biggest thing is, can you figure that power play out? That's really the one hole on this team. And most importantly, Connor, can you please get to the first round healthy? Can you just limit the amount of damage that is done to this roster come early to mid-April? That's the biggest thing. And speaking of early to mid-April, Connor, let's look ahead. Bruins most likely, no doubt, are going to be the number 1 seed in the Atlantic. They're going to play a wild card team. Let's pick. Who would you want the Bruins to play in round 1 as of now?
Yeah, I think right now, if you want to do like pure entertainment value, I'm going to go with the Florida Panthers. I was debating like Buffalo, their defense is kind of, because that would be a fun place. That'd be a very fun arena, and like those fans are diehard, and like it'd be great to see them take that step. But I feel like there's still maybe one more year away. They got to fix that goaltending situation, which I think Devin Levi might be signing with them very, very soon out of Northeastern, so that helps them out. Anyway, Buffalo, they're on their way up, but I'll go with Florida, and that's not just because I want to go to the beach, because I think that is just such a chaotic matchup.
Lucky if that's the case.
Yeah.
Jealous.
But yeah, I think Florida is a team that, it's fun to watch them play when they're playing well, which has not really been the case that much this year. But if you want like a matchup, like you look at these other teams that are sitting around that second wild card spot, like the Islanders, that's one that the Bruins should win, but got a good goalie. Like they play a structured, annoying kind of style of play.
Boring series, boring team.
Like if Florida somehow gets in and clinches that second wild card spot, that has the chances of the Bruins just winning that in 4 or 5 games and just like potting 4 or 5 goals a game, right? Like that defense is not very good. That loss of Uyghur has been huge for them. They can score, Florida, like especially when they're playing at their highest levels, but that matches up well against, I think, a team like Bruins that are based on good goaltending, structured defense. Again, it's all about, I think, finding that easier matchup, which again, it's the NHL playoffs. Like I guess there is no easy matchup, but you'd rather them go through a series against a team that likes to trade chances like Florida as opposed to an Islanders or something like that.
Well, and you have the Matthew Tkachuk thing too. That would be a whole. Imagine Hathaway and Bertuzzi and Greer and Marchand against Tkachuk. That would be quite a series. I also think Florida is just more of an exciting team. I was saying to you and Ty Anderson last night, like you think back to the beginning of the year, there were a lot of people who said the Bruins were not going to be in the playoffs. And what's funny is I feel like a lot of people missed on the Panthers because we were all saying like that team lost a lot. Like that. Defensively, they're not that great. In net, they're very shaky. Like that's, they were a wagon last year because a lot of guys overperformed, but they lost a lot of guys off that roster, and they overperformed. They were not. They
shot like 41% as a team. That's a lie, but like it was an absurd like shooting percentage they have.
Yeah, it made no sense. Who was the guy who went to Dallas? Who was the third liner? And I'm blanking on his name. But who was it? We're not editing this out. We're leaving this in. But it was someone that. Marchment. It was Mason Marchment. Yeah. Mason Marchment, who I remember advocating for, like, hey, the Bruins should think about him as a depth scorer, prior to getting Zacha. And he was a guy who, overperformed in Florida last year. I don't know how he's doing this year, but again,
I actually don't think he's doing too hot. But anyway,
legitimate piece last year that they lost because he was an important part of that team last year. My team, I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. Give me Pittsburgh. That's an exciting matchup. Crosby, Malkin. I know they're not that good this year. There's a lot of calls to fire Ron Hextall. There's a lot going on there. That's a team that is really heading on the downturn. I just think it'd be cool that if this is Bergeron and Krejci's last run, they get one last, opportunity to beat up on the Penguins. Like, I think it would just be a story, but I said at the beginning of the year, it's gonna be a storybook route through the playoffs and through the season. So far it has been, so I'm going to stick with that prediction. I think a storybook ending would be beating Pittsburgh in the first round. I know the Pittsburgh Penguins have not been like a thorn in the Bruins side ever in the playoffs, but I just think it'd be cool. One last time, Bergeron, Crosby. I think it'd be awesome. Cool series. Not huge on their play in net. I don't think they're that great, overall. Buffalo's an interesting one, though, I will say, because Buffalo, this is going back on history, but remember in 2010 when they weren't the number 1 seed, but the Sabres were the 3 seed, I think, and the Bruins were the 6 seed, and the Bruins upset them? Can't give the Sabres a chance to get revenge on that. Can't be doing that.
That is also true, yeah.
So they're going to bring out Miroslav Shatan for that game.
It's one of those ones where I feel like I'm always like rooting for like Buffalo to get back to relevancy, because like the NHL as a whole is better when a team in a city like Buffalo has a really good hockey team, because they have a very passionate fan base. But I know as soon as they do like break through that tier, I know like those fans are just gonna be so annoying on like they're gonna be like they're gonna step right in, which I welcome it. But again, it'll be very fun when Buffalo is a true playoff hockey city again. But I know they're gonna be testing us, Evan. They're gonna be jumping on these YouTube channels. They're gonna be.
Oh yes,
yeah. They're gonna when we don't have Darlene as the Norris Trophy winner, we're gonna have like the rogue guy from like Amherst, New York. It's gonna be going after us. But
no,
I appreciate the passion.
No, Tage Thompson is the MVP. We're getting absolutely roasted in the comment section. But it's what, and I agree with you on this. That's a good city for hockey. The fans are into it. Those playoff games, you go back like to the 2000s. Those wagon teams with like Vanek and Pominville, like those crowds were nuts. So I am all for them being back in the playoffs. I don't think it'll be this year. It's interesting though, because like you have Buffalo, Ottawa, and Detroit all kind of on that same upward trajectory. Ottawa kind of has the names, but they, Lord knows what's going to happen there. Buffalo seems like the surest bet because Detroit's still kind of like no goalie there. I don't know. Detroit seems a little farther away. Buffalo seems like they've taken more strides.
Between Darlene and Power and those guys, like especially if Levi hits, then they're well on their way. Like they've got key pieces everywhere. I don't want to give credit to any Northeastern kid, but yes, he's a very good goaltender.
Very good goalies. By the way, speaking of hockey's playoffs this weekend, are you nervous?
I'm never nervous. I'm never nervous. I know the Terriers are going to pull through. We're not going to, again, unfortunately, the Beanpaw was not played this year, so the Terriers were not able to dominate once again. Very unfortunate, but they're saving up their energy for the Hockey East tournament. I'm very confident, and if they lose the Hockey East tournament, Evan, you can clip this and dunk on me, but it's not going to happen because the BU Terriers are going to win a Hockey East championship. Book it.
There you go. That's Rick. I got it.
It's going to be an always sunny. It's an always sunny like Connor. The Terriers get eliminated.
Our editor Amit is already putting this video together as we speak. But BU will at least they'll be in the tournament. They'll be in the NCAA tournament. So that'll at least be good to watch them fall on the national stage. I mean, win.
That's very rude. I expect better from a classy UMass.
Very classy, very classy. No UMass this year, unfortunately. So I have no one to root for. I have no one to pull for. Merrimack's good story though. Merrimack's a great story. So yes.
They eliminated BC. So.
This is true. They also did that. And I'm all for, a smaller type school getting some bigger notoriety. So we'll see what happens this weekend. Connor, what can people look forward to from you over at Boston.com?
Yeah, we're going to have you covered every step of the way this Bruins season with recaps, columns, features, breakdowns, all that good stuff over at Boston.com. Of course, we have you covered on everything happening in Boston sports, whether it's Patriots off season, Red Sox spring training, Celtics, everything you can find over at Boston.com. So please read all of our stuff over there. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. And as always, we're sponsored by FanDuel, our good friends, exclusive wagering partner. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. Poke the Bear listeners. Have a great rest of your week.